Hello, fellow traveler. I am Sam. I am a budget backpacker and I'm currently exploring South America. I'm in Peru right now, but I'm heading to Chile in a few days. And I created this travel budget planner to help you financially prepare for your adventures. Whether you're planning a short trip or long term travel, this guide will help you through budgeting from start to finish so that you can travel stress free. You'll see that this planner is divided into three main sections, of course, not including the introduction. But we have the pre-trip planning, which is going to help you determine your travel budget style. It's going to help you research costs in your destination and also create a savings plan. There's also a track your progress sheet in there so that you can really keep track as you go. The second section is going to be the budget tracking templates, and these include daily, weekly, and monthly budget templates so that you can keep track of your expenses on the road. The daily and weekly templates are going to be ones that you can fill out, but the monthly budget template is actually going to be a Google Sheets that has custom formulas and that you can edit yourself. And then last but not least, we have the bonus and resource section, which features a pre-trip financial checklist and my go-to travel tools. So before we dive into numbers, I would recommend starting with the What's Your Travel Budget Style quiz so that you can figure out how you truly spend your money when you travel. You might already have a good idea on this, but I think quiz is just kind of fun and it'll help you kind of go through the guide knowing what kind of accommodations that you're going to want to look into, what kind of transportation you'll probably take, things like that. So it's just a fun little tool to help you get started with this travel budget planner. So after taking this quiz, you'll go to the next page and it'll show you your quiz results. So you'll just tally up how many times you selected A, B, C, or D, and then you can see what category you fall into, whether you had mostly A's, B's, C's, or D's. And I will say that I had my partner Dylan take this and he kind of tied between A's and B's, and that's completely okay. It's just to kind of get an idea of where your budget is when you travel. I won't go over the results too much because I'll let you take the quiz and see for yourself, but I will say that the most important thing is to score realistically. Try not to judge yourself or shame yourself because there's no one right way to travel. I definitely thought that I was going to be a shoestring adventurer, which is like the base level budget backpacker, but I actually scored a lot of B's, which made me the budget savvy explorer. And I took this quiz and created this quiz after I already started traveling, so I had already created my travel budget, but it totally made sense because I budgeted to be a shoestring adventurer, but I actually spend more like a budget savvy explorer, so I budgeted less than I needed. So if I were to go back and do this journey, I think I would be more realistic with my spending habits when I do travel, and from there I would be able to have a more realistic budget. So now that you know your travel style, we can get into researching costs for accommodations, food, transport, activities. This list covers just things that you'll want to think about to include in your savings plan when you do create a budget. And then these two sheets are really good resources for where to research some of these costs when you're trying to create a budget plan for your trip. I did include a brainstorming worksheet, so if you find any accommodations that really spark your interest, you can jot them down here. Same with activities and attractions that you want to do. And then you can also just write the price down next to them so you can kind of start getting an idea of what some of these costs are going to look like. On this page, you don't have to book anything. It's just a way to kind of get the juices flowing and to start thinking about what your budget might look like. So once you kind of have an idea of what you're going to be spending or what you can expect to spend, you're going to come and do this destination cost worksheet. And essentially you'll have a box for one-time expenses, and then you'll also have one for more daily expenses. The second page just kind of shows an example of this. So one-time expenses might be travel insurance for the month or a hostel that you booked. It could also be activities and attractions that you'd hope to do and maybe the plane ticket to get there. So those are examples of one-time expenses that you can account every cent for. Even if you haven't bought these things yet, you can still jot down the numbers kind of with an average so that you can create a plan in order to have this money to be able to do this trip. And on that note, I would suggest that if you're a little unsure about a cost, I would probably give it a little wiggle room. So, for example, if you think that your transportation might be $590 because that's what Google is showing you, but you haven't bought it yet and you know that the prices might fluctuate a little bit, I would maybe try to aim for a little over $600 just so that you do have that little bit of wiggle room. For daily expenses, that's going to be things that kind of vary throughout your trip. So, of course, food is going to vary every day. You can include a snacks and drinks category separately if you want. You can also include them together. Toiletries, whether you're going to be on a longer trip or if you need to buy anything before. You could also include maybe any kind of transportation that you think that you'll be taking within the city, day trips to other cities, and then any kind of just extra spending that you hope to do, like for souvenirs or gifts or tips that you want to give to tour guides, things like that. So this is going to look a lot different for everybody because it does kind of depend on your travel style and what you spend your money on. So for me, I don't typically spend a lot on food because here in Peru and in Ecuador and in South America in general, they have what's called menu of the day, and oftentimes they'll have that for lunch and dinner, which is essentially a discounted meal where you get soup, your main course, and a drink that comes with it, and it's like for a very, very good discounted price. So I figured that I would just do $12 a day, which in the US that seems like nothing, but in South America that is actually what I've been getting by off of. Snacks and drinks, Dylan and I don't actually drink, so we don't really buy a lot of alcoholic beverages or anything like that. We do buy snacks, especially for hikes and stuff like that. But I'm not buying snacks every single day, so I made it a lower number, like $2 a day, because some days I'm going to be spending $10, some days I'm going to be spending $0, but typically that would kind of add up. Laundry and toiletries, I gave myself $20 per week, so around $80 per month. And again, I'm trying to round up as much as I possibly can just so that I will have a little bit of extra. Intercity transportation, these are going to be things like taxis or Ubers if you need to get to the bus terminal or a different spot in the city, things like that. I found that Uber is very, very cheap in large Ecuadorian and Peruvian cities. And so, of course, once again, I'm not going to be taking public transportation every single day. So I rounded down to $1 a day because it is really cheap in the city. And of course, some days I'm going to be taking Ubers, some days I'm not. Same with taxis. For transportation to other cities, I like to take a lot of day trips when I travel. So I gave myself $15 per week, which kind of is going to vary because, some day trips are going to cost less. Some that are farther away are going to cost more, but I felt like $15 per week was a good amount just for some day trips or traveling to different cities within the country. And then for extra souvenirs and tips, I don't really spend a lot on souvenirs because I'm backpacking and I don't have a lot of room in my bag, but I gave myself $15 every 2 weeks, and so that's about $30 a month, just as a safety net if I needed to buy things like sunglasses, if mine had been lost or broke, if I needed to buy a new shirt, things like that. As you can see, this isn't super strict on how you do it. Some of the things I, wrote costs for daily, but then other things I said per week because it just made more sense. For like laundry and toiletries, for souvenirs and tips, I did every 2 weeks just because I felt like that made the most sense for me. So the most important thing is just doing what works best for you. Of course, this box says number of days, but if you're going to do it every 2 weeks, obviously you wouldn't be timesing it by 31, you would just be doing it by 2 because there's 4 weeks in a month, if that makes sense. I also wanted to point out that up here, you'll see that I had 3 accommodations and they actually don't equal out to 1 month in Ecuador. It's just because I had volunteered for one of the weeks. So if that seems like it didn't make sense, that's why. So once you have all these numbers and you've calculated what you think you'll absolutely need to spend for this trip, you'll enter in the one-time expenses here, your daily total expenses here, you'll add them together and you will get your estimated total trip cost. And that's very important for this next section where we're going to go into the savings formula sheet. So we can use this sheet to figure out how much you need to save either weekly, monthly, or per paycheck, and this will help you create an achievable savings goal. So you're going to enter in your estimated trip cost here, and I really recommend, this is optional, but I recommend entering a savings buffer just in case there are expenses that you didn't account for and you maybe forgot about, or if there's going to be some costs in the destination that are higher than you expected. It's always just better to have a little bit extra so that you feel great when you're going and you don't feel like you're going to be scrounging for money, and you can really, really enjoy your trip without worrying about financial constraints. I also included an example sheet for this. You'll see it 2 sheets down from the actual worksheet, but essentially I've entered in my total trip cost. I rounded up because it was almost $1,500, but it wasn't actually there yet, so I just rounded up to $1,500. And then I gave myself an extra $500 for a savings buffer, which made my total savings goal $2,000 for 1 month in Ecuador. So the next step is you are going to choose your savings frequency and calculate your goal using this little box. So you can enter in how many weeks you have until your trip, how many paychecks you have until your trip, and how many months you have until your trip. And then you can really just decide if you're going to try to save by week, by paycheck, or by month. And for me, I decided in this example to save per paycheck because that just made the most sense for me. So then this box shows you the formula in order to calculate your savings goal. So for example, if you're going to go through the weekly plan, you would take your total savings, which is $2,000, divided by weeks, which would be 20 weeks, which would be saving $100 per week. For the paycheck plan, which is the example that I chose, I would be taking $2,000, which is my total savings goal, dividing it by how many paychecks, which are 10, and then figuring that I would need to save $200 per paycheck. So that's the route that I decided that in this example I would go down, but you can also do it by month. This is a good idea as well, especially if you earn commission or you don't have a steady paycheck, then you can always do it by month as well. And you would take your total savings, $2,000, divided by months, 5 months, which would be $400 per month. So this is essentially just a way to figure out a actionable savings plan that you can follow, whether you do that per week, paycheck, or per month. It's a great way just to make sure that you are consistently making progress towards your saving goal. I also included this fun little track your progress sheet so that you can visually see how much you've been saving. I think it's just a fun way to kind of congratulate yourself for how much that you've been doing. So I also created a example for this, which is once again 2 sheets down, but just if it's confusing on how to kind of complete it. So you'd enter in your estimated total trip costs, and then there's 3 different trackers on here that you can use. You don't have to use all of them. You can use all of them if you want, just whatever feels fun for you. So this one you can do by percentage. So 10% of my 2,000 would be $200. 25% would be $500, so on and so forth. And then you can go in and check if you have saved that amount and the date that you had that amount. You can also do this saving thermometer tracker, which is also by percentage, but it's every 10%, and then you can just fill it in as you go. Here you would write each section represents. For me, it would be $200 because 10% of 2,000 is $200. So this would be 200, 400, 600, etc. And you would just fill it in with color. And then this one is also kind of fun. It's a grid style savings tracker. And I have 100 boxes here, so you can always just use your estimated total trip cost and divide it by 100, and that'll give you your number. So for me, this would be $20, and every $20 that you save, you can just check this box off, and it's a fun way to keep track of just the smaller savings, because sometimes these take a while to build, but $20, if you're saving $200 for every paycheck, you can mark off 10 boxes. So that's kind of another fun way to do that. Now that you've kind of created the savings plan for before your trip, you are ready to go. You have all your money set aside, and now it is time to go on your trip. But the budgeting does not stop when you take off. You can use the daily, weekly, or monthly budget trackers to record any expenses that you acquire, and make sure that you are staying on track. So to begin, we have the daily travel budget, which is pretty self-explanatory. You just enter the date, you enter your daily budget goal. So that's actually going to be your total trip saving costs divided by the amount of days that you will be gone, so that you break it down into more of a daily budget goal versus a total trip goal, if that makes sense. You'll just enter in the expenses for accommodations, food and drink, activity and attractions, transportation extras, yada yada. You can write down how much cash you took out, if you acquired any fees. You can either circle yes or no if you stayed within your budget after entering your total amount spent. So to go over kind of how you would fill these out, once again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just write what you spent here. The local price is just the currency in the destination that you're traveling to. So for me, the example would be Peruvian sol, and then my home price would be US dollars. So if I paid in soles, I would write it in here, and then I would just convert it to my home price. Personally, when I'm calculating total spend, I do my home price just because it makes the most sense for me. But if you want to, you can also do the local currency as well and then convert it from there. I just wanted to make a note that if you are getting this travel budget planner through your email and it's a PDF print copy, you can always open this in either Canva or I believe Microsoft Word. I'm not entirely sure how well it'll convert into Microsoft Word, but in Canva it'll convert pretty well. And if you need more of these pages, you can always just hit duplicate page. Or alternatively, if you are printing out the PDF copy from your computer, you can always just go in and print more copies of specific pages that you want. That could be either the daily budget or the weekly budget. Additionally, if you are going to be printing it and you don't need as many pages, the daily travel budget or the weekly travel budget templates that are in this PDF, then you can always go in and decide not to print certain pages so that you have less of each, if that makes sense. So now we have the weekly travel budget, which is, I would argue, even more self-explanatory, but essentially you're just going to enter in the date, the description. You can also do the local price, convert it to your home price. You can write your method of payment if you'd like, and then any fees that you had acquired. And then, of course, you're not doing daily budget goal anymore. You're going to be doing your weekly budget goal. So you can just times that by 7 and then enter the dates that you are tracking here. And then there's a little note section on the bottom. You can still write down if you had withdrawn any cash, but then you'll also have the little place whether you can circle if you stayed within budget or not. I did include 6 of these weekly travel budget templates within the PDF copy, so you can add more, you can take more out. If one page isn't enough to get down all of your expenses, then you can also just use the next page and write continued if you'd like. Next, I have the monthly travel budget, and as I mentioned, this is going to be a Google Sheets that you can edit yourself with ready-to-go formulas. And this sheet really gives you a ton of instructions on how to use the monthly travel budget tracker. However, I also did create a YouTube video, and you can watch it at this link, and you will get a more in-depth guide on how to use the monthly travel budget. So I'm not going to go over that now. And then lastly, if you want to feel just more secure in your financial planning before you go, I created this pre-trip financial checklist. Some of these things are optional, but I do think a lot of them are really beneficial just to make sure that you are set to go before your trip. If you want to check that out, that's always a resource that's available to you. And I also included my favorite go-to resources for budgeting, booking, and just managing finances when I travel. And you can also use that as a resource at your disposal. And then, of course, we just have the note sections if you need to jot anything down at the end. So that is the travel budget planner tutorial. To get the most out of this planner, I really recommend using it consistently, checking your progress, and honestly, just don't stress if things change. That's kind of the nature of budgeting. It's just about adapting to the situation. I am so proud of you for taking your finances into your own hands and working hard to be financially prepared and ready for your trip. I promise you, you are not going to regret it. It's going to make everything feel so much more smooth, and you're going to have the trip of a lifetime. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you got a lot out of this video, and we'll see you next time. Happy travels.